You're listening to the Navigating Leadership Podcast, a podcast where you get to sit in on conversations I'm blessed to have with leaders from around the country and right here at home. I'm Dave Freund, and welcome. This week, we'll join a conversation I had with three of my Maxwel Leadership Colleagues who are also Live2Lead hosts. Let's listen in on why they host Live2Lead and what their top takeaways were from this year's event. I'm Dave Freund, and I have three special guests with me this evening. So I think we're going to do ladies first. We're going to let Susan introduce herself first, and then we'll kind of go around the squares here on our Zoom meeting. Susan, go ahead.
Well, thank you, David. I am Dr. Susan Meyerly. I am an executive director with the Maxwel Leadership Organization. I primarily operate in Lincoln, Nebraska. And in addition to working with the Maxwel organization, I also provide coaching and counseling services to employees and their companies.
Awesome. A Cornhusker.
I am a Cornhusker, definitely.
Well, the CEO of MACNY, the Manufacturers Association, is also from Nebraska. So there's going to be something that he will enjoy when he listens to this podcast. So Susan, welcome. Jack, you're up.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Cool. Hey, everybody. I'm Jack Kleemeyer, and I'm in central Indiana, a little town called Brownsburg that nobody knows where it is, but it's just west of Indianapolis. And I'm also an executive director on the Maxwel team. And what that means is that we can give you some really cool stuff, but you pay for it. But it's all good.
It's all very good. And
Great.
and even though you're from Indiana, you're not a Hoosier because you're from Ball State.
Well, Ball State is in Indiana. It's matter of fact, it's the Harvard of Muncie, Indiana.
All right. And does your shirt say Cardinals? Is it a Ball State Cardinal?
That's right. Yeah, Ball State Cardinals. See, when I went there years and years ago, it was known as the largest high school in the Midwest, but it's gotten substantially better since.
I'm sure, because you were there. Last but not least, Daryl Sanford. Daryl, welcome.
Hello, glad to be here. Thanks, Dave. I am a professional nudger, and basically what that means is I help people identify and clarify their purpose and their goals. I work with organizations and individuals. I've worked with Dave and MACNY several times over the years, and also part of Maxwel Leadership. So I'm privileged to be here. So thanks.
Thanks. Glad to have you back there. So Daryl and Jack have been on my podcast. So if you're listening to this on the Navigating Leadership podcast, you'll know who I am. But since I'm sharing this feed with the three of you, I am Dave Freund. I am also a Maxwel Leadership coach, trainer, and I'm also the Chief Leadership Officer for the Manufacturers Association of Central New York, otherwise known as MACNY. But the reason we're together tonight is all four of us are Live2Lead hosts. And so what I thought I would do is just to give each of us a chance to talk about, why we do Live2Lead, what we like about Live2Lead, and then maybe we'll go back around the horn again and we'll talk about specifically this year's Live2Lead. What were some of the speakers that seemed to resonate with you the most and why? So Susan, we're going to go back to ladies first. Susan, why do you offer Live2Lead to your clients?
Well, actually, this year is the first year that I've hosted any Live2Lead events. And really what the drawing card for me was an opportunity to bring nationally acclaimed speakers to my local community and to provide people an opportunity to have access to presentations and information that they might not normally have. And also to gather as a group of industry leaders who are really committed to professional and personal growth and to making a difference in the community. And so for all of those reasons, I decided that now was the time to become a Live2Lead host.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited that you did because, it's just a super exciting event for our communities. Jack, and maybe, Jack, you can also tell us how many Live2Leads have you hosted?
Well, I was just thinking about that. I'm like, I probably ought to know how many I've hosted. I think it was my 6th or 7th one that I'm doing this year.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly, but I think that's about right. And yeah, I've lost count. But it's kind of funny too, because then all of a sudden all the different talks, like, where was that talk? Where was that talk? Who, who was that speaker or whatever? So, 7, yeah, 8, no, 7,
Eight.
7, 7, 7. So 7 since 2018. And then, I used to send all my clients and prospects and friends and connections to another Maxwell coach here in the Indianapolis marketplace. They hosted a large Live to Lead. They'd have, well, I don't know, 200 people. And so I would just help them. I would, help set up the room, help break down the room, fellowship with other John Maxwell coaches that were in the area.
Yeah.
And, but it was a terrible model because although people loved it, well, I love the content just for the content, but I think that we ought to also be able to make a living with it. And theirs was free. So the first year I hosted it, I didn't charge anybody anything. And then I'm like, how's that going to pay my mortgage? So I had to rethink that.
Sure. So Jack, you love the content. Typically, who do you invite to your Live to Leads, or where do you, because you run multiple Live to Leads?
Yeah, last year I did 6 of them, which I can't believe that happened. But I mean, and as I put the first one together this year, I'm like, how in mercy did I get 6 of these things launched, right? But I did, and so like I partner with community organizations, chambers of commerce. I have one. We just rescheduled the date for January 24th is one of my next ones. A good friend of mine, another chamber of commerce. We're going to do early January. And then the first one we did this year. So all but 2 of them. So this year I'll be doing 5. The other 2 were with the Indiana National Guard. And what's interesting, or will be, one of them has already happened, the other one will be. What's interesting is that the person that got me into the National Guard came to my first Live to Lead last year and said, could you bring this to the base? And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. Right. And so they loved it. Yeah. So that's, but chambers of commerce, and then my list, people who I keep track of who attended. Either they register or I have them sign in sheet or a feedback sheet, and then I invite them again the next. I have a thing on there that says, do you want to be invited back?
Wonderful. Great. So Daryl, how about you? How many have you done, and why do you do it?
Started in 2019 was my first one. And I think I've done them all. I may have taken one off in COVID, trying to figure out what we were going to do and how we were not going to be in a room, and before Zoom was cool. And the reason that I do it, and I tell people this all the time, is you can download a trainer or a speaker on YouTube and you can listen to it, but you can't download a community.
Right.
And what my goal is that when we bring together the community, and whether that's my clients or folks that are just other leaders or potential leaders or people that want to develop and learn themselves, when I can bring them all into one place to spend the day and to learn and get different perspectives from each other. And, you hear these amazing speakers like John Maxwell,
right,
but you also are able to have these conversations, and it makes it more meaningful than just, hey, I can watch that on YouTube.
Daryl, I think that's where the magic happens, is when Dave shares what he got from it. And if I don't have that in my notes, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a good point. Because like wherever we are in our story, we hear that message. And if somebody else hears a different story, then it's even more powerful. So you can amplify your learning, right, by just listening to the conversations, which I
100% agree.
And I would also add that one of the pieces that I think we're all very conscientious about adding in is an opportunity for people to have those experiences, to share the insights and key takeaways, and to not just watch a world-class presenter, but really to give some consideration to what does this look like for me, for my organization, and to share those ideas with other people that are participating in the Live to Lead events. So I'm so grateful, Daryl, that you've mentioned that idea of community, because I think that's really one of the key advantages that many people identify with a Live to Lead event.
Yeah.
So
Dave, why do you do it?
Yeah, Dave, why do you do it?
Yeah. This year was my 9th Live to Lead. So I started in 2015. I became certified with Maxwell Leadership in 2014. And when I heard about Live2Lead, I just jumped right in and I just said, no, this is something I need to do. And I do it because I recognize the content as being world class. And I also realize that few people in our community would ever gain access to something like that. And so I do it kind of as a, the public event that I host is kind of framed around a leadership retreat. We go to a very amazing place. It's built like an Adirondack lodge. And it's a quiet day outside of the hustle and bustle of a city. It's not far from Skinny Atlas Lake, which is one of the Finger Lakes. And it's a beautiful day. And I want them to be able to get away from the rat race of work and listen to great content and listen to what other people are saying about that. And then share these shared learnings that all of you have talked about, that community piece. And this year, we were just blessed to have Daryl help us at mine. And we used an app called Slido to even get other ways for people to give us feedback on what were their key takeaways. So it's, again, we're showing a speaker, and then we're trying to get some, what are the community learnings, so to speak, from it. Now, I probably need to explain to some folks who have never heard about Live2Lead what it is.
Yeah.
So Live2Lead is an event that originates in Maxwell Leadership puts it on. And people like the four of us buy a site license. And then we are allowed to replay that event from the first Friday in October through the end of February, at which time all the content goes dark. Now, this year they had, I think it was 8 speakers that we could choose from.
Yeah.
I used 5 in my room. And then I'm doing a bonus session this Friday, and then I'm going to do another bonus session in December, where we'll do that all virtually, I'll set up Zoom links for people to take those extra bonus sessions. So it's John Maxwell, of course. John does a beginning teaching and typically a second teaching later on toward the end of the day. This year we had Michael Jr. Michael Jr. I'd never heard of, but what a hilarious guy. He uses humor to give us truths that just can pierce right into our inner soul, so to speak. Shantae Lowe, who was the Olympian high jumper, Valerie Burton, who's an author and really focuses on positivity coaching, but she's also the mentor for all of us that are in the coaching realm within Maxwell Leadership. John Gordon, who's the author of The Energy Bus. Malcolm Gladwell, whose newest book is Revenge of the Tipping Point. So Malcolm is actually the speaker that we're going to be offering virtually this coming Friday. And then I'm going to also be using Chris Robinson as another bonus one. And there was another video that I wasn't planning on using. Daryl, what's his name? I forgot it already.
Brendan?
Yes.
Brendan.
Brendan Dawson, right?
Yep.
Yes,
Thank you. So, and I don't plan on using his. It just didn't fit with the time frame that I had. So for you folks that, have experienced Live2Lead this year I guess it would be the 2024-2025 season. What are some of the highlights that really spoke to you from this year? Susan, go ahead.
Wait, hang on, Susan. Before you go, I just got to say that I'm a little jealous here in Indiana because we don't have a lodge and we don't have those chocolate chip cookies baking.
That's true.
Okay, so
I'm here and I'm still not using the lodge with the chocolate chip cookies.
oh, wow.
Well, and I would just add to that regard that while David does orchestrate a wonderful retreat that I would love to maybe attend or be invited to someday, I guess technically I have been invited. So I guess I can't give you too much grief about that. The real beauty of
Susan, I'll tell you exactly what. The first Friday in November next year, I heartily welcome you to come to our Live2Lead at the lodge.
Well, now that you've put me on the spot, I think I think I should book a plane ticket. But I think one of the really cool things about Live to Lead is that with the opportunity to showcase the different speakers, it really gives us an opportunity to identify what are some of the key messages that will resonate with our audience.
Yes.
And one of the surprising speakers and experiences for me this year was Michael Jr., who is a comedic thought leader that I really was not familiar with prior to Live to Lead. And I think one of my key takeaways from Michael Jr.'s presentation was really about how the role of humor in conflict. And not that conflict is funny. That's not necessarily what he was suggesting, although there are times it can be. But really how humor can be used to ease tension when there is conflict. And I think that was one of those key messages that really resonated with some of the organizations that heard his presentation.
Yeah, Susan, I loved one of his statements where he said, when something happens, when there's a conflict that takes place, we could get furious or we could become curious.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved that phrase because I think when we get curious, we're about hearing the other person, and we're not
Right.
necessarily about barriers or obstacles, or not really listening, but really more about objecting or making our point and being angry. So I appreciate you identifying that one, because that was the one that I just really loved. I think when we're curious, that leads to greater understanding, and curious is about in becoming entrenched in a position that we're not interested in resolving that conflict, perhaps.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and I mean, he said, I'm 100% with what you guys are saying. He had said conflict is gold, and your first thought is, no, I don't want conflict.
Yeah.
But when he shared how a joke, how you can lead into a joke, but if there's no conflict in the middle of the joke, the ending's not funny.
Right.
Right. You have to have conflict in order to bring it into to being humorous. But he just did a great job. I felt like it's like I just hadn't thought of conflict in that, in that direction. Right. So we're always trying to figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jack, you had mentioned before we started recording, there was that you had quoted Michael Jr. just today.
Yeah.
Do you remember the quote that you shared?
Yeah. I don't know if I can remember it though. I mean, yes, I know the quote that I shared, but I don't know if I can. You said it. So it's the one that says, people and circumstances will continue to appear, which
They
what's
will
the
reveal where you are not free yet.
yet. Yeah, and the yet's optional. And let me just say too, when we're talking about these, the speakers aren't coming to our communities. These
Right.
are video rebroadcasts of an event, but they're facilitated by us, which then adds a whole nother dimension to it. So like Daryl said, you could watch a video on YouTube about probably any of these speakers, but what makes this work is the community in the room, the thoughts that happen in the room, and then the sharing of those ideas facilitated by us, who have done anywhere from 1 to 9 of these. So for different, over time. So I think that's what makes it magical, is that you have an experienced facilitator that helps the room absorb or at least recognize what's going on.
Right. Thank you.
And this is exclusive content.
Yes,
You're
right.
never going to see this on YouTube, right?
Yeah,
This is it.
Yeah. Once we get to February 28th, it just goes dark.
Yep.
And the content is not available anymore.
Yeah.
Jack, what was one of your key takeaways?
Two really. One is, I love Malcolm Gladwell's hair. If you all haven't seen Malcolm Gladwell's hair, look him up. He has the most awesome hair. And secondly, how same part about Malcolm Gladwell, just how brilliant he is and how down to earth he is. Just a normal guy, right? That was good. I loved John Maxwell's presentation, both of them this year. So John bookends, David said earlier, but John opens and closes the event. So there's usually 2 John Maxwell segments. Again, I echo you guys on Michael Jr. Usually there's a speaker that I say, I wasn't quite sure, but this year I too showed Shante, I showed John Gordon, of course, John Maxwell, Malcolm Gladwell, and did I say Michael Jr.? Anyway, I showed 5, but this year they were all solid. Now, Chris Robinson, David alluded to earlier, he's the executive vice president of Maxwell Entrepreneurial Solutions. In other words, he's our boss, kind of, sort of. But he talks about, I think his talk is really good too. It's on the power of learning and growth, right? So I've got a place I'm going to use that. And then I'm going to use Valerie Burton's time management, or time, it's about time talk, to as my bonus for people that attended.
Great. Daryl, how about you?
I love, obviously I've been following John for 28 years. So I always love when he's to the stage. There's not a better communicator that I can think of. And his first discussion for the day was about abundance. And it was just, he does it in such a way that he invites you to think. Yeah. And to process out things different. And, one of the things he says was, he's talking about pies, right? And it's like, it's not the last slice of the pie. Make another pie, bake another pie, and when it comes to abundance, it's, the doors are wide open. You just go make another pie. I mean, that was just it was very telling. It was a perfect time for me in my business as I'm growing. And I think about this, and we haven't mentioned it, but we've got the speakers from this year, but the amazing speakers that we've had in previous years, it all stacks.
Yeah.
Right. The more you come, the more you listen, the more you engage, the more you get, and the more that it stacks. And this particular lineup this year stacked so well. Like they don't talk about what they're going to talk about, but man, Shantae Lowe was just amazing. And John Gordon, I don't know. There's so much.
Yeah, John Gordon alluded to that. He said it's amazing how these talks thread together, and we didn't talk about, here's the theme,
right?
But they always have, which is just spooky how that happens.
Yeah.
And I think what really impressed me, and then Susan, I see that you unmuted there, was that all of the speakers were focused on our thinking and our mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the only thing that we can really control in life.
Yeah.
Susan, did you have something you wanted to share? Because I saw you unmuted.
I was actually going to echo some of the comments that Daryl was sharing about John Maxwell's presentation on abundance. And, ironically, it's funny you would talk about stacking, because ironically I have a water glass that sits at my desk. And earlier this year, I, on a Post-it note, wrote the word abundance, and then I taped over it to kind of attempt to waterproof it in case I spilled water. But abundance had been one of those key areas that I was focusing on. So as Daryl was describing in John's presentation about that abundance mindset, and I think we have a tendency in a competitive nature to really see a scarcity mindset.
Yes.
And one of the key insights I think that John shared was that whole idea, as you just described, Daryl, of making more pie, that there isn't a finite number, and that really leaders create opportunities for more pies to be made. And, I think part of that is also about making sure that you're equipping your team. And so there were just a number of applications to the information that John had shared in that first session on the abundance mindset. And so thanks, Daryl, for reminding me of some of those insights as well. Yeah. Powerful stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
And I love how John said, the key to having an abundance mindset is that we have to practice it.
Yeah.
So it really is a choice. Having an abundance mindset is a choice that we have to try to choose or be intentional about choosing every day, because life will try to suck that right away from us and tell us, no, you got to hold your piece of pie because there may not be another pie. And no, go bake another pie.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
One of the two statements that really jumped out at me, I loved all of John's stuff. But one of the ones where Michael Jr., and it sounds like it's a riddle, but it just is, it's been something that I've been pondering on. He said, I was thinking about what I was thinking about and how I was thinking about it. I want to say that again. I was thinking about what I was thinking about and how I was thinking about it. This mindset piece is critical for us.
Mhm.
You know, and a lot of people know that I'm a person of faith, and it's biblical. You know, the Apostle Paul in his letter to the church in Philippi, I always refer to it as the whatsoevers. You know, he basically said, you know, whatsoever things are lovely, honest, just, pure, and of a good report. And I think I left out of one of the what's. Think on these things, because we have to control our mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then another one that I really put here is John Gordon said, caring is the currency of greatness.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
wasn't that awesome?
It was
Yeah.
good.
That just like, wow, that one not only did I put in my notes, but I highlighted in yellow.
Yeah.
Caring is the currency of greatness. So I know that I've taken about as much time as I asked you folks to give me. Just a reminder to everybody that they should reach out to us.
Yeah.
Yep.
We can do Live to Leads privately, in a home, in a business, in an organization, anytime between now and February 28th.
Yeah.
And we can do it virtual.
We can
Yeah.
do it virtually as well. You know, if you've got a team that's scattered, talk to us.
Yeah.
We can
Absolutely.
make that happen for you.
Sales team, you know, like a sales team or a customer
Yep.
service team or a delivery team.
Right.
Yeah.
Any of those folks where attitude matters, which is everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. So how about some final takeaways? What would be some last minute advice that you'd like to give to our listeners?
So I think for me, it was one of the statements that John Maxwell had made in really understanding the role of values, that you make a commitment to your values once and you live those decisions every day.
Mhm.
And so I think this is an opportunity to continue to develop our skills as leaders and also to develop our team. And I was incredibly excited to bring, as I said, this was my first year of doing Live to Lead, first of many to come. I have no doubt about that. It was such a phenomenal experience. And so I would really encourage people to invest in their personal growth, that it doesn't just happen by accident. It
Oh,
is
yeah.
a daily decision. And so that was one of the other pieces that resonated with me through Live to Lead.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Good.
it's so strong. I was thinking about when Michael Jr.'s talk. It's not that long, 28 minutes maybe, but in that talk, he weaves this tapestry of where he started off being stuck in some place for every day, every week, for 4 hours a day for 4 years. And he makes it sound like it was a negative thing, right? And then as the story unfolds and he talks more about different elements of comedy, he comes back to that story and makes it so that the blessing in that story, which is, what if the stuff from your past prepared you for the future, or for the present that prepares you for the future, right? And something like that. And so to me, that just my study of how people think and people's journeys, I just thought that was so cool how he brought that full circle.
Great.
That's
Daryl,
good.
how about you?
I'm going to say the word that keeps coming to mind is, the two words is, don't assume. If you've got a team or even just yourself where you're looking to develop, where you're looking to learn, look at this as an opportunity. Because, right, like for instance, and I'm going to, a shameless pitch here, right? I've got 2 masterminds coming up in January in Central New York. And if you're here, it's worth the drive to come and experience a community that wants to grow, that is seeking to invest in other people. And don't assume that you know what this event is if you've never been here. Because if you're thinking, oh, it's a rebroadcast or it's a video or whatever, it's not that. Because that is just content. The people in the room is what the event is. And that's what you need to come and experience. And yeah, you're going to hear some great speakers. You're going to hear, from leadership panels or local speakers as well. But being plugged into that, you just need to evaluate what's working Like if you're trying to grow, what's working, what's not growing. If you
Yeah.
need something to work, come join us. Every one of us will help you.
Absolutely. You know, the first note that I wrote on the day when John started was the biggest gap between successful and unsuccessful people is the mindset gap. And really, if we all need to make sure that we keep our mindset where it needs to be. And the best way to do that is to, there's this quote that all of you know, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Right. Right.
So by getting around people that are learning, that are growing, getting around coaches, getting around trainers, you're going to make sure your mindset's where it needs to be. So for Daryl, Jack, last but not least, Dr. Susan, I'm Dave Freund, and thanks for listening. My key takeaway from our conversation was that the power of Live2Lead is in the community that attends the event with us, because we learn from each other. If you'd like to have me bring Live2Lead to your organization, just let me know. Remember, we only have until February 28th, 2025. Until next time, I'm Dave Freund, and thanks for listening to the Navigating Leadership Podcast.